Welcome to the NonStatic Podcast, where we explore how to keep moving forward when motivation feels distant. Here, we dive into finding peace and fulfillment in a busy world, discovering how to embrace life's opportunities to live with purpose and joy. I'm John, and my brother, Dr. Josh.
As always.
How are you doing, Josh?
Good, how are you?
Good. What'd you have for lunch today?
Steak. Yeah,
Nice.
I did. Well, that question came out of left field.
Sure did.
Yeah. I'm gathering you want me to ask you what you had for lunch. So, John, what did you have for lunch?
I had egg salad.
Oh.
Yeah, nothing exciting.
I was expecting something amazing.
Nope,
Disappoint me.
not at all. Just a good old icebreaker.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had steak bites, John, with a little bit of jalapeno sauce.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Jalapeno sauce? What? Homemade or?
No, it was in a bottle. I found it randomly in the fridge in the workroom, and it wasn't bad.
Oh wait, the jalapeno sauce?
Not the one that you made.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, did you know that I made some jalapeno sauce that's in the fridge?
I did.
Pretty much the best jalapeno sauce.
It's been in there
you
for a
ever
while
had.
though, so I don't know if
Well, it's fermented.
I don't know how long it lasts.
It's fermented and it's mixed with salt and vinegar, so it's pretty well preserved.
So does hot sauce ever expire then, for that matter?
You know, it does. I noticed that my hot sauce, if left too long, you get some like little patches of mold on top.
Oh,
I read about it, and it's not harmful. So sometimes I just shake it up and.
so it's kind of like penicillin then.
Kind of,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it says it's non-toxic. It says that if anything, it might make it taste a little different, but it's always just a little bit. So it's like, I'm like, yeah, we're fine.
Huh.
I haven't gotten sick yet from that, I don't think.
You know, speaking of hot sauce, I think I put this on the newsletter a couple months ago. There is a company, I forget where they're out of, but it's called Crippling Hot Sauce. And
Is it hot?
well, the logo, if you look it up, the logo is a jalapeno pepper sitting on a wheelchair. And at first you're like, well, that's kind of in bad taste. But then if you do more research into the company was founded by a 17-year-old high school student who has a physical disability, and he's bound to a wheelchair.
No way.
And he was told in high school that in business class that his business plan would never work, and so he wanted to prove the teacher wrong, and his business plan was to make hot sauce, and so he did.
Hold my sauce.
And apparently the hot sauce is quite good.
Oh, I might have to get some of that.
Yeah. So anyway,
So
speaking of hot
free
sauce.
Sponsorship right there for
Yeah.
our listeners. Right there.
crippling hot sauce. It's good.
I will have to give it. I will look back at this when we're editing it, and I will make sure I order
crippling
some.
hot sauce.
Yeah. So have you had any of it?
I have. It's quite good.
What's different about it? How does it stand out?
I like hot sauce, as you probably know. I always look for not only a sufficient amount of heat, because I like it to have heat, but I don't like the heat to overpower the flavor.
You want it to be debilitating?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't mind it really hot. I just want to also be able to taste the ingredients in the hot sauce.
Right.
And so, crippling hot sauce is a good job.
It's kind of like have you ever watched the show First We Feast?
I never have.
Oh, it's such a good podcast. It's such a good show.
It must be about food.
It is about food, but it's not necessarily. I think it's First We Feast. They have a tray of. They have like this whole line of chicken wings, and each chicken wing has like it's like 10 or 12 different sauces. It starts from like regular mild sauce to like death sauce,
Sure,
like just unbelievably hot. And the host, he just interviews these people. And it's just great.
He interviews them as they're eating the
eating the chicken wings. Yeah,
I'll have to listen to that.
So good. I watched one with the last one I watched was with Theo Von, and if you know anything about Theo Von, that dude is just hilarious. And
wow,
it's just a good time. It's a good time.
Sounds like a good time.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, anyways, enough about that.
Yeah.
So, you told me what we're going to be talking about today.
Which is the 9%.
The 9%. And I haven't really read up the notes, except I just really glazed over it really quick. This was kind of a last-minute thing.
Well, believe it or not, I did, because I wrote the news article.
You wrote it.
To be coming out. Yeah. Yep.
Interesting how that works.
Tasha's actually working on it right now as we
Okay.
speak. So, but anyway, I just want to read a couple stats. So some of us probably know a lot of these already, but 20% of small businesses fail within the first year. And then roughly by the end of the 5-year mark, 50% have failed. Okay. More specifically, so failure means you're not making it. By the 2-year mark, an estimated 30% of businesses have closed completely.
Jeez.
And then what's even more depressing is that 91% of businesses have failed within the 10 years. So that's where the 9% comes. Okay, that's where So that means only 9% of businesses that you see today will be around 10 years from now.
Why do you think that is?
So it's, well, we'll get to it. We'll get to it.
Jumping the gun.
So I'm not obviously this podcast isn't designed for businesses, but on the flip side of that, you look at it, I always look at like a small business as somebody's hopes and dreams, right? That we start a small business because we have hopes and dreams for ourselves. But on the flip side of it, we can kind of pick on New Year's resolutions. 80% of New Year's resolutions fail by February, right? By February. And I found this funny that did you know that there's and maybe this is old news to a lot of us, but there's a National Quitters Day.
No way.
Yeah. It's the second Friday of January. That's National Quitters Day. And it's called that because approximately half or 50 to 60% of New Year's resolutions are already dead in the water by the second week of January.
That's nuts.
So the quitters. So National Quitters Day. And
they
then
gotta feel like a turd when they get to that point if they fail already.
Well, I don't know about that, but it's kind of getting into motivation. But then one more stat. The average New Year's resolution only lasts about 3.74 months at the max. So of those that go past National Quitters Day, on average, resolutions last only about almost 4 months max. And at the end of this calendar year, only 8% of people will have maintained their resolutions that they made in January.
Unreal.
So yeah, look, how's that for depressed?
That's
so
depressing.
If you made any resolutions, you have an 8% chance.
That's crazy. I was browsing, just checking up on my social media a little bit today, and I happened to see a local guy, Ryan. Is it Ryan Bruzik?
Oh, Ryan Bruzik. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's amazing.
He just celebrated like over 1,000 days of running every single day. This guy is a beast.
He is a beast. He runs by our office in the summer.
He does. And he's always carrying an American flag.
Not always.
I've seen him do it before.
Yeah, but he has. Yeah.
Yeah. It's always it always makes you feel extra patriotic when I see the guy running by.
He'll prove it. I mean, if you look at when he posts on Facebook, he'll take a picture of his watch that keeps track of his streak. I think today, as of this recording, was like 1,019. Sorry, Ryan, if I'm misquoting it.
Absolutely insane.
He can correct me if he wants.
Absolute beast.
It is. Yeah, it's pretty impressive. So, but to kind of get back, I mean, he's obviously been able to maintain that. He's very disciplined. With that particular goal. Yeah, it's pretty impressive. So why do you feel it's so hard to maintain our goals and ambitions?
I think it turns – well, I think it initially – what I find interesting is that I've always heard it takes 21 days to make a habit and like 90 days to make it like a permanent part of your life.
Sure.
Like just kind of like it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
But it's also the mindset too. But it's like that's kind of like seems like the stepping stones – that I've always heard to make a permanent change in your life. I think people just lose interest. I think the dopamine rush of starting a new habit, of starting something new, having a resolution, like, okay, this is the first couple of weeks, those that stick with it are like, yeah, I feel pretty good. Let's just say working out, because that's probably usually what it is. Working out diet. Sure. If they're able to see progress quickly, that's motivating. That's motivating. But then I think those who do quit after the 2 weeks are like, I got sick, or I'm just too busy, just can't do it. I feel depressed, I feel down, or whatever. And so they just quit. Like, what's the point? I worked out once or twice, I'm done.
Yeah.
And then the people after like the 3 months, And like most of them quit still. That I don't understand why, because I would think at that point you'd have a habit that would be more part of your lifestyle. I don't understand why they would quit after that.
So you need to understand, not you in particular, but I think it's important to remember that our bodies are comprised of organs, and one of them is our brain. Our brain is an organ like any other part of the body, and it seeks to run efficiently. And so you're correct when you talked about dopamine. Dopamine is what's called a neurotransmitter, and it's a chemical that's released in our bodies. And dopamine and different neurotransmitters have different purposes. Dopamine is linked to the pleasure and reward centers in our brain. Okay, this is kind of getting into my nerdiness when it comes to neuropsychology, but dopamine travels on what's called the ventral tegmental area, the VTA, and that the VTA is involved with our goal-directed behavior, and then it reinforces those habits. Okay, what happens is the brain also has this incredible ability to adapt. So the brain is constantly looking to be most efficient in what it does. It's kind of an example of when you brush your teeth. You don't really think about it; you just do it. That's because your brain has normalized that behavior. And if your brain has to think about something every single time it does it, that's a waste of energy. And so our brain really normalizes behavior. And so now most of us, at least those of us that brush our teeth regularly, we just do it. And then we realize half the time we have to go back and think, did I brush my teeth or not? No, that's because your brain goes on autopilot, essentially. And your brain has set up a system of efficient function that allows you to complete that particular task very quickly and efficiently.
Yeah, it was something that's that ingrained in you, like brushing your teeth. I'm actually, if I forget to brush my teeth before, I never do. But if I do, I can't sleep until I do it.
Right.
It's like I'm extremely uncomfortable until I accomplish a task.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of because you've stepped outside your norm then, and your brain kind of does keep track. But the problem with that, our brain's ability to develop that autonomic behavior, so to speak, or that automatic behavior, is that means the dopamine rush then goes away as you're continuing to repeat that pattern of behavior over and over, and that in turn reduces the motivation. It trends our motivation downward, and so that's why we find that it's difficult to sustain stuff. What ends up happening is, like, to your point, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but in pop culture, it's 21 days to establish a new habit and 90 days to really integrate it. What people don't realize is that within a week or two into trying to do that new habit, your motivation will take a nosedive because the behavior has now been normalized. It's not new anymore. It doesn't get you jazzed up anymore. Your brain, your body adapts to it. It's kind of like when you exercise, or when someone that has lifted weights hasn't lifted weights for a long time and they go work out in the gym, they really experience that muscle soreness a few days later. But then that doesn't necessarily happen every time because your body adapts to the new workload. Okay, it's the same thing with our motivation and our dopamine levels. After we have done a behavior for a period of time or are working towards something for a period of time, the newness and the novelty of it wears off, and then the dopamine hit goes away. And that's where the motivation really becomes a challenge.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So then the point is, well, great. So I gave you all these stats about the failure of goals and dreams. So then what do you do with it? Right. The key is for any sustained success is you have to figure out a way, obviously, to build your motivation back up. And there's kind of four ways that I go about this. And I'm not an expert by any means, but it's kind of what the research would show would help you sustain your progress a little bit. The first one is to break it down to build a system. Now that seems very simple.
Right.
In social media and popular cultures are always talking about break it down to small individual steps. But really what you're talking about is develop a system in your life that enables you to work towards those things in a consistent manner. The same way that you have a system for brushing your teeth. If I were to be a fly on the wall, I would probably see you brush your teeth at around the same time every single day. You know, it's just part of your routine. That's all a system is a routine that you've built up.
I see. Okay.
And so if you have those systems in place, it's going to be a lot easier. It's going to be a lot easier to maintain your progress. The second thing you can, and it's, again, not to belabor the point, but the whole point of a system is to put your brain on autopilot, or to put your behavior on autopilot, so they don't have to think about it so hard.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
The second thing is to track progress and then celebrate wins. So for me, I'm kind of an archiver kind of guy. I do a lot of writing, and I do a lot of journaling, and I enjoy that. And so for me, writing down my progress on a daily basis kind of forces me to not only reflect on what I've done as far as working towards my dreams and goals and aspirations, but it's also the way of keeping track of it to reference later. It gives me that sense of accomplishment.
What do you recommend for somebody who wants to do something similar to archiving or journaling on a daily basis, but they just don't have the motive? Like, they're working all day, they're writing, they're typing, and they're like, the last thing I want to do is open up a notebook and start writing again, but they know it's important. Like, how do people find the drive to do something like that they don't want? It's simple, it's easy to do.
Yeah.
It's also easy not to do. You can do it while you're watching a show, or it really doesn't take much time at all. It's just a
I think particularly for journaling and self-reflection, perfection is the enemy of progress.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, when they think of journaling, they think, well, I need to develop, because when you see somebody like journaling on a movie or a TV show, you see these big eloquent entries that are perfectly worded with perfect spelling and beautiful handwriting and all that stuff.
And the page is filled.
Yeah, and the page is filled. So we kind of set ourselves up for journaling or self-reflection has to look a certain way.
Yeah.
And we kind of hold ourselves to this standard that really doesn't exist, but we kind of set ourselves up for failure. And so a lot of people get intimidated by, geez, I sat down and journaled and I only wrote 2 sentences and there's this whole page, and they don't like that. So it discourages them and they give up.
Yeah.
So I would just keep that in mind for some people. What really helped me and really got me going is consistency. What really got me going consistently with journaling is to break it down into really small sections. And what really helped me is there are several different types. There's several companies out there that actually make what's called a 5-year journal. Well, what is that? Well, it's a standard like Moleskine notebook that you would see, but they print it, and then each page has 5 sections.
Right.
And then at the top of the notebook is the date, like January 25th, for example. And then there's 5 blocks on each page to journal January 25th. And so that really helped me several years ago. It's not as intimidating. It gives a person the sense of accomplishment because they actually filled in that whole 5 lines. And that's what helped me. But the other thing is just find a medium that works for you. Some people really enjoy putting pen to paper. There's tons of apps out there now for electronic journaling. Like, I've used Day One a lot. I've used that for probably 10 years, which is fun to look back on.
Yeah. You can add pictures and stuff on those, pictures and videos.
Yep. And even the iPhones now have a native journaling app. So it's really just finding what works for you.
Yeah.
And what you enjoy doing. But then it's committing yourself to that brief process.
For me, when I do journaling, I start ultimately my favorite thing would be is to write in a notebook, so you can like pull it off the shelf, look at it someday. But then I'm also like, you know what? I'm not gonna carry my book around with me, my notebook around with me all the time. So then maybe why not just do a journaling app on my phone or something, or on my computer, which that also works too. But then I'm like, I really want to get back to writing in a notebook, but then the apps is great because then I can add photos and context and some videos, memories like that. Well, then I could also use Google Photos to look back on memories too, and then it just never stops. It does never stop. It's like I have, my problem is I'm always looking for the next best way to write about my life, and so then I get, I don't know if it's procrastination, constipation, or just like analysis paralysis. Yeah. Probably, maybe a little bit of that.
What I do, and while we're really digressing here, but that's all right. What I do is at the beginning of the year, I kind of not jot down, but I write down what my systems are in that regard. It's like there's always another app, there's always another program, there's always another organization tool that you can use.
Right.
But I sit down and I evaluate all that because I like trying new things. It's fun. I like technology and notebooks and all that stuff. But I commit myself to this is what my system is going to be for the year.
Right.
And then it kind of keeps me grounded a little bit. Otherwise, you're constantly wavering.
Right. That's true.
know,
Good point. Yeah.
From thing to thing. So, and I just write that down at the beginning of the year. And it's part of my yearly planning process that I always take.
Right.
And that's what helped me.
Talk about a serious
detour.
turn.
Yeah.
Jeez. Okay.
But anyway, so
we were talking
about breaking it down, and first step to maintain your motivation was to break it down and build a system. Again, the systems are those habits. And then the next one, where we digressed, was to track progress and celebrate wins. And again, there's lots of different ways to do that. Like we said, journaling. You can just get a habit tracker and track it down. But it's the goal is to force some self-reflection, to be in touch with why you're doing what you're doing.
Right.
The other thing I wanted to mention is celebrating your wins, your progress, is equally as important. And I don't mean celebrate the achievement of a goal. I mean celebrate the progress you're making towards a dream or an ambition. And so that may mean you have a dream that you're working on, or a small business, or whatever goal you have. And say it's a 6-month goal. Well, you're going to break that goal down into smaller steps. Then you want to reward yourself for each individual step that you've made along the way.
So I think you and I need to celebrate this year, because this is our 5th full year officially in business with Inspire Services.
Sure.
I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
In a rural area.
Yeah.
Which is not. I mean, if businesses in general, it's a little bit tougher for them in rural areas to succeed. Even more so when you're talking about mental health. I mean, finding good quality staff and so give ourselves a pat on the back.
Right. Give ourselves a pat on the back.
That's right. But we got 5 more years till we hit that 10-year mark. So.
Until we're the 9%. Yeah.
That's right.
The next one. So after track your progress and celebrate wins, is to stay flexible but accountable. Now, here's what I mean by that. It is very important that as you're working towards something psychologically, that you're flexible with it. Believe it or not, life will always get in the way. And I saw a very motivational meme on social media last week, and that was, life is never going to wait for you to feel comfortable or to get back up from a time that you've fallen. You just need to get yourself up, carry your burden, and keep going. So life is going to continue to progress, and if you're going to wait for a perfect time to start something, or to wait for the perfect plan, or to wait for the perfect whatever, to start working towards what you want to achieve in life, it's never going to happen. And so the goal is, the point is, you just put a stake in the ground for yourself, strive for something, and knowing that it's probably going to have to be adjusted. Nobody that sets a plan or writes a business plan or develops a self-improvement plan, it's never going to go perfectly. Right. But it's a guidepost to lead us there. And it's important to know that you can be flexible and adjust it. Some people would say, some people are more of the white knuckler type of mentality, which is if you adjust the goal at all, or if you adjust what you're planning to achieve at all, it means you're compromising. That's true to some degree, but it's also, success is not a straight line.
Right.
It's a lot of ups and downs and zigzags and lefts and rights and north and south and whatever.
But everyone else thinks that it's a straight line for those people who have succeeded.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. So it's really about laying the groundwork for it and just continue making progress and then adjusting as you're going. For example, this week, my wife has been on a girls' trip in Cancun for the whole week, and I can promise you that some of my self-improvement goals that I set for myself kind of had to be adjusted this week, just given on the change in responsibility and whatnot that I had. Being a single parent for the week. And it's okay to be flexible. Now, if I wasn't flexible about it, I could throw all of my what I was working for, I could throw it all away because I didn't hit it exactly the way I had planned to for this particular
Failed this week.
But knowing ahead of time, I had to be flexible and make some compromises. So that's what it's really about. But the other thing is not only be flexible, but be accountable. And that means, if you're striving for something, have an accountability partner that will come alongside you and encourage you
Right.
when the difficulty
Mm-hmm.
is tough. You know, when you look at the field of substance use recovery, they
Mm-hmm.
talk a lot about having a sponsor. And the reason a sponsor is just another way for an accountability partner. And so
Right.
the reason that works so well is because that area, the field of addiction, knows that people will be motivated to be sober or to reduce their substance use for a period of time, but that motivation will eventually go away, and it's at that point that you need someone to help hold you accountable,
Right.
not to come down on you, but to encourage you to continue walking the
And
line.
I suppose also to hold other people accountable too, because if you're holding somebody else accountable,
Right.
then you yourself, I would imagine, you have a better chance of maintaining sobriety in that case.
Right, exactly.
You know? Yeah.
Yep. And then the last one, which is really important, and this is, I would say this is probably the hardest part, is reconnect with the why.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that seems simple, but really it's about why are you doing what you're doing? You know, if
Right.
you're looking, if you're going back to school, if your dream is to go back to school, why are you doing that?
Mm-hmm.
Is it because you feel it's important? Is it because it's your passion? Or is it because you feel you're trying to impress somebody else?
Right.
It's really important to know what your why is and what motivates you.
Mm-hmm.
And quite frankly, our why should typically be intrinsic, not extrinsic. And what I mean by it should be an internal motivator, not an external one, because external motivators are very difficult to sustain.
What would be an example of an external motivator?
For example, in a marriage, for example, one person there may be some marital conflict, for example, and say if I'm in that situation and I decide I'm going to make a change because I want my wife to appreciate me more. That's an external motivator. And while that's great, that's good motivation. If the only reason that person is making a change in that relationship is because they think the other person wants them to, not because they feel it's the right thing to do as a developing person, it's going to be much harder to sustain that over time. If that makes sense. So that's the example of an external motivator, where it's an extrinsic
And there's no
motivator.
guarantee that other person would appreciate that.
Correct. Yep. And it's also built on assumption. Now, to flip it around, if you talk about having an accountability partner or someone to hold you accountable, in that same situation, the person may say, these are really some shortcomings that I found in my life that are contributing to problems in this relationship, and this is what I'm committing because it's the right thing to do, and I want to be a better person and be a better spouse to my partner. This is my goal of self-improvement for this relationship. And then if that person were to then communicate that with their partner, the partner could then help hold that person accountable. But the motivation is still internal. It's not the other person's approval.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
So again, connecting with our why is very important. If we don't know intimately why we're doing something, we could set up any system we want, but that system will ultimately fail.
So
if we don't know why.
Find your why.
We have to find our why.
Find your why and make sure it's important enough for you to.
And that's especially true in our work lives and our relationship lives. If we don't know why we're doing something, that's when the drift comes in our life and we're just kind of drifting around aimlessly.
Yeah.
So the why is very, very important.
It's okay to lose your why, but it's okay. But it's also important it's also even more so important to find it again. So like it's okay.
Right.
It's okay to feel disillusioned or whatever, disappointed in yourself or where you're at. But just make sure you find that why again, and just remind yourself why you're going through this hard stuff.
Exactly.
Because again, that's how I've said it before, but that's how champions are recognized in the ring.
Right.
And they're not.
But nobody cares about them.
Nobody
cares about the 99.99% time that they spend everywhere else.
Failing,
working,
disappointed, worried that they're going to make it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's no successes, no true successes is an overnight success ever.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Cool. One I know we got to get going here, but one book that is always really good for this is Atomic Habits. I know.
That's a big bestseller for a reason.
Right. It's so good. It's all like starting your habits small, like just small steps. Because if you do something small, and small increments, it's a lot easier to find those habits and to maintain them and
Yeah.
so therefore you can reach your goals in the end.
Other
So,
people, yeah, I think he calls it the law of, or we call it like incremental progress or the law of aggregate returns or whatever. He's essentially comparing it to compound interest. But I've heard other people talk about laying those little groundwork, those actions that build up to
Right.
progress. They call it stacking. It's
Yep.
stacking one good action upon another rather than, and that over time builds up.
it's also called the slight edge.
There you go.
It's also another
Yep.
really good
Yep.
book too.
Yes.
I forget who the author is, but it's a fantastic book. Just
Yeah.
get 1% better every day.
Right.
And at the
Yep.
end of the year, you'll be 365% better in
Yep.
theory.
Exactly.
So, in theory.
Yep.
So, well, that about wraps it up for us. So I just want to thank you guys for joining us today for another non-static podcast. If you'd like to stay connected and dive deeper into finding peace, focus, and fulfillment, just be sure to sign up for the Non-Static newsletter at nonstatic.org. And as always, remember, if you or someone you know is struggling with their mental health or sobriety, we're here to help. Reach out to us anytime at Inspire Services. The website is inspireservicesllc.com. Or give us a call, or talk to anybody in your area that is in this field, and they can, or even a loved one would be able to help you get the help you need. So, take care, enjoy your week,
And enjoy the journey.